Can Jimmy Butler lead the Miami Heat to a championship? Well, that's debatable. Should Tyler Hero be a starter? Well, that's also debatable. But this should not be debatable. As the Miami Heat advanced to the semifinals in the Las Vegas Summer League, Heat vs. Haters tweeted out what we've all been thinking, which is the Miami Heat's 3 two-way contracts should go to Keshad Johnson, Isaiah Stevens, and Josh Christopher. Except that's not what we've all been thinking. Sure, a lot of comments do agree, but I also have a large portion of fans that love Alondes Williams, that want to see the amazing Spider-Man get a deal, and believe it or not, I even got some Dru Smith fans, and that's one that I just don't understand. I don't know what kind of blackmail Dru Smith has in the Miami Heat, but he must have something, because that is the only way he continues to retain his contract. He continues to be brought back. Even if he was that true point guard that some people think he is, he's not healthy. And as a Heat team that has injury problems as is, why would you retain a guy who's not even healthy enough to play in the Summer League? That I just don't understand. So although there is some justifiable debates on who should get the two-way contracts with Miami, I want to use this video to explain why it should be Keshad, Stevens, and Josh Christopher. So starting with Keshad Johnson, he's a guy that the Miami Heat signed immediately after the conclusion of the draft. So you know they were hoping that he wouldn't get drafted, which was kind of a big risk, because one of the first things I heard from people that were familiar with Keshad, which I wasn't when the Heat signed him, was people were saying, how the hell did this guy not get drafted? There was people saying the Heat should have taken him with their second-round pick instead of Pallel Larson, which is funny because Pallel and Keshad were actually teammates in college at Arizona, and now they're teammates again. But there was people saying Keshad should have been drafted, and obviously I see why. I did post a video kind of breaking him down after I did do my research, and immediately I fell in love with him. After seeing what that kid was about, I told y'all to buy all the Keshad Johnson stock and still do it. It's not too late. But it looks like through Summer League, I was pretty right, because this dude is a baller. The comparison that I keep saying for him is he is PJ Tucker with Derrick Jones Jr. athleticism. He is the definition of Heat culture with so much heart and tenacity and hustle. But it's not even just that why I love him so much, and I think he's such a great player in this Heat system. It's because of his defensive versatility. He's 6'6", but he's very strong and uses his athleticism to be able to guard 1 through 4, maybe even some 5s in the NBA. That still remains to be seen, but I do think the potential is there, because the defense we've seen in the Summer League has been incredible. He switches amazing, holds his own on whoever he's guarding. If it's a bigger guy, he's able to use his chest and body up and not get babied. And we've seen him block a ton of shots, rotating well to do such. So he has great defensive IQ, great timing, and all around, he's really the whole package on the defensive end. And on top of all that, he has shown some offensive versatility that I can't help but to be excited about. In college, he did a little bit. He was a very good three-point shooter his senior season, not so much before that, but he was very improving. And a lot of his shots came in the corner, which is kind of where I got that PJ Tucker comparison from. And I think the corner three is the most important shot in basketball, maybe, because from a spacing aspect, that's where you really allow, your guard to drive through the top of the key, get that dribble penetration. And then there's Keshad Johnson sitting in the corner wide open, and that just really helps that spacing. And if Keshad could continue to knock down that shot at a consistent rate, well, now guys can't play off him. And that's going to open your driving lanes for Jimmy, for Bam, for Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero. You cannot understate the importance of corner spacing. In Summer League, his shooting hasn't been great, but it hasn't been bad either. I feel like it's been average. He certainly hits, his fair amounts of threes. But what I do like is the attempts. He's getting them up, and that shows that he does have the ability to stretch the floor. Otherwise, he wouldn't be shooting them. And in the Heat system, I think that'll be his role on offense. He has shown some more versatility to be a dribble pull-up guy. We've seen some fadeaways. But I think his offensive skill set in the NBA right now will be limited to corner threes and obviously transition offense, because we've seen some nasty transition offense from him. But he also will be a guy that can maybe get a few, second chance points per game. He's an elite defensive or offensive rebounder because of the hustle, because of the athleticism. So for that reason, he'll get some points in that regard as well. I think he's a guy that's going to play every single game for the Heat. I really do. Unfortunately, they can't sign him to a standard deal now because that would put him over the second apron. But they will be able to do that in January when his prorated contract value is less than what the difference is to the second apron, which is important because as a two-way guy, there's a limit on the number of games he could play in the NBA. And if he does play every game, his limit runs out in January. So by the time that happens, they would be able to sign him. So I do think, they can retain him all season. And that's important because he's shown that he's a guy that can play right now, 23 years old, so he has a little bit of an experience. And especially considering this is a Heat team that just lost Caleb Martin, I think having a guy with that defensive and offensive versatility is a great replacement. So Keshad Johnson will pretty clearly retain that two-way spot. Moving on, I want to talk about Isaiah Stevens, who is your favorite point guard, a true facilitator to AT, an elite passer, which is very funny to say. Because I remember when he was signed, he was kind of being clowned by Heat Twitter because he was signed a few weeks ago to an Exhibit 10 deal, which to clarify is a non-guaranteed training camp deal. So he still needs like an official roster spot, whether it's, a two-way or standard deal, which they can't do because of the cap space again, which sucks because this Heat team has Thomas Bryant and Alec Burks. I don't get it. Now, I think those guys are fine, but would you rather have Isaiah Stevens or Alec Burks? I don't know. I think I'd rather have Isaiah Stevens, but they can still cut Dru Smith and make spot for Isaiah Stevens, which is something that they have to do. And the reason that Stevens was getting clowned, I guess, is because he was signed around the time where the rumor mill was very hot. You had a lot of DeMar DeRozan rumors. You had a lot of Lauri Markkanen rumors, even some Zach LaVine rumors. And the guy the Heat signed was someone we never heard of out of Colorado State named Isaiah Stevens. But he showed us immediately why he was worthy of that contract. Because coming into the Summer League, he has been amazing in every regard. He's obviously known as a passer, but from an offensive efficiency standpoint, he was shooting like 60% from three before the last game, like 80% from the field, something ridiculous like that, because he only takes good shots. Because he is a very, very high IQ player. That's what you're getting with Isaiah Stevens. Obviously, he could pass the ball, but his turnover rate is very low. He has one of the best assist to turnover ratios in the entire Summer League. And in college, he was very good at that as well. Now, not as good as Zion Poulin, which just to kind of talk about him, that's one of the guys that's currently on a two-way spot for the Miami Heat. He hasn't shown out in Summer League, and I think he's a good player. He's also, a high turnover, low mistake type of guy. But even his minutes have been decreasing. And to me, that tells me the coaching staff is leaning more towards Isaiah Stevens than Zion Poulin. So while I think Poulin is a good player, I do think he's a guy that will end up losing his spots for Isaiah Stevens. Even though Poulin's a lot bigger, I understand that. But you can't ignore what Isaiah Stevens been doing. You just can't. And on a Heat team that already has a core set, you're trying to win a championship right now. When you add in a player, you want to add in someone who is not going to mess things up. And because of Stevens' IQ and low mistakes, he's not going to mess things up. In fact, he will elevate the play of everyone around him because he's so unselfish. And that's another thing you need because you got scorers on this Heat team. We see what Bam's doing in the Olympics. Jimmy Butler's going to want to go out in this contract year. You got Tyler Hero, Terry Rozier. You want someone that could get them the ball. Stevens can do that. And even if Stevens doesn't start, which he probably wouldn't on this team, he could come off the bench, run a second unit, and that's critical. People that aren't a big fan of him say, oh, but he's 6 feet tall. He's very short. He's not super tall, but he uses his IQ and athleticism to be very, very solid on the defensive end. He hounds guys on defense. He tries very hard. And I think that's how you make up for size as a smaller player on the defensive end. So I like what I've seen from him. He's got that, pesky point of attack perimeter defense on him. So he doesn't get cooked on that end, at least not by Summer League talent. Of course, that could change in the NBA. But I can't say enough nice things about Isaiah. But I can't say enough nice things about Isaiah Stevens. So I do hope and think that he does get an official two-way spot. Lastly, we got to talk about Josh Christopher, who quite frankly has been too good to be ignored. He's different than the rest of these prospects because he actually has quite a bit of NBA experience, over 100 games, was a first-round pick with the Houston Rockets a couple years ago. I don't think he got a fair shake because literally that year, the Rockets had 4 first-round picks. Jalen Green, who's the same position, Alperen Sengun, Garusma or Rube. I don't remember the other guy, but 4 first-round picks, 3 of them ahead of Christopher. So I don't think he got a fair shake, and that's why he really wasn't shown all he was able to do until right now. Now, he was a guy that did make some mistakes, didn't have the best offensive IQ, but he was very young. He was 19 when he was drafted. So although he has the most NBA experience, He's still younger than Isaiah Stevens. He's younger than Keshad Johnson. He's only 22 years old, which obviously means he still has a lot of room to grow. And I think we've seen a lot of improvements in Josh Christopher. He's a very versatile bucket. We know he's a good shooter. We know he's a great athletic defender. We see him use that athleticism to just be a menace everywhere on the court on both sides of the ball. And that's a Heat culture guy. And we know he is because I've told the story before. Udonis Haslam said it on the broadcast. Christopher wasn't happy with the way his career was going a couple years ago. So he reached out to UD and asked to be on the Miami Heat because Josh knew at such a young age, he knew that he needed that Heat culture and that Heat discipline to really get his career on the right track. And for such a young guy to be aware, to be self-aware and to acknowledge that and to know the hard work that comes with Heat culture and to be begging to be a part of that, that shows me a guy who wants to do whatever it takes to win. That shows me a guy who has heart. And you are seeing that in the Summer League right now. And he continues to stand out in all of these games as just such a versatile player, versatile two-way player. And I think that's something that he can use. I know I've said in the past that Zion Poulin probably keeps that two-way spot because he is more of a facilitator and he'd have a lot of scores. But the way Isaiah Stevens been looking, do they need two facilitators? Is there a need for Poulin when you got Isaiah Stevens? I don't think so. And as a Heat team that couldn't score last year, I know they have guys that theoretically can score from the guard position, Tyler, Terry, Duncan, but the Heat's offense still was terrible last year. Duncan Robinson still has back concerns. Tyler Hero is fragile, in Pat Riley's words. That's not me. Those are Pat Riley's words. Terry Rozier, although they say he's healthy now, he had a random neck injury last year. So at the very least, you can have Josh Christopher for injury insurance, and he does look like a guy that could play right now. For that reason, he should get that last two-way spots on the Miami Heat, in my opinion. But that's my spiel on who the Heat should sign to the two-way contracts. Do you agree with me? Did you not agree with me prior and I convinced you? Let me know all your thoughts down below. Make sure to like and subscribe because tomorrow I'm doing a little bit of a deep dive into the futures of every NBA team and really who has the best young promising core and how that stacks up with the Miami Heat. Because right now it looks like the Heat truly have one of the brightest futures in the NBA. But before I get out of here, I gotta acknowledge I'm back in Broward, back in the childhood home. Y'all see the Big 3 Heat poster with Hassan Whiteside covering up LeBron. Yes, I was a petty kid, but because I'm back in Broward, y'all know I had to hit up my boy Frank over at Cutsesh in Davie. Had to get the freshest, cleanest cut. I don't know if y'all noticed, but I just wanted to shout out my boy because he does a great job. He cuts out of the Players Lounge in Davie, and it's a great sports theme, you know, barbershop. It's awesome inside, and obviously Frankie does some quality work. So if you are in the Broward or Davie area, make sure to hit up my boy Frank. I got all the links down in the description below. You can hit him up on Instagram. I actually had one person who watches these videos go and see him because Frank told me. I don't know who it was, so if that was you that saw Frank in the Players Lounge in Davie, let me know down in the comments below so I could thank you personally for showing up. But yeah, show my boy some love. That being said, like the video and subscribe, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace out.
Look, pull up in your city tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.